the Advanced Welsh Baccalaureate Qualification, Skills Challenge, Enterprise and Employability, specifically the section Employability, a cost analysis for accommodation, consisting of formula for the mean, mode, medan, standard deviation, range, maximum and minimum. So when we talk about the mean in arithmetic, what we're referring to is simply the average of a specific data set. Okay, so the average is always the sum of the collection of the numbers divided by the amount of numbers in the collection. The collection in this instance, okay, so this example I'm using in this video, is the total cost per calendar month of renting a one-bedroomed flat or a one-bedroomed terraced house. These figures also include council tax monthly per calendar month and the utility bills per calendar month. So for flat 1 in the cell B4 and C4, it's the rent per calendar month, the council tax per calendar month, and also the utility bills per calendar month, come to a grand total of £635 per calendar month. That is the Cardiff region. In the London region, London flat number 1 in cell D4 and E4, the total for the rent per calendar month, council tax per calendar month and utility bills per calendar month comes to £1,592 and so forth. Okay, so we have 8 properties in the Cardiff region and then 8 properties also in various areas of London. Okay, and they are sort of prices that we found. All right. This cost analysis will involve you showing the advertisement for each of the flats as well, so we can see the raw data in screenshots in MS Word, so you can actually show each of them flats. So we should have 16 screenshots of the flats then, matching up with flat 1 rent and London flat 1 as well, and the rent, etc. Okay, so everything should match up. The raw data should match up with the data that's included in this Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so we're working on that the London council tax average is 132 per calendar month, and that the Cardiff council tax average then for a band C property is £115 per calendar month. Including utility bills, water and energy, the average per calendar month we're going with is £120 for both the Cardiff region and the London region. Okay, so moving on. I've defined what we mean by mean. So the mean is the average. Okay, so you can see the formula there in the lower left hand corner of the screen. I've written the formulas. So the mean formula for the Cardiff flats, if we select the values per calendar month for each of the flats from C4 to C11, then this will give us the mean. I'm going to select the cell that I want the mean to appear in. And if you then look up at the top left-hand corner of my screen in FX, you'll see the full formula to calculate the mean or the average, okay? So it's equals average, open parenthesis, C4, colon, C11, close parenthesis, okay? And then that is written here for you as a reference point for you. Press enter and then it'll give you the mean calculation at 831.88, rounding that up then, okay? And we've just repeated that then for the London flats in the London region. So it would be E, if we pop the cursor in there, and then it's equals average, open parenthesis, E4, dot, dot, down to, so E4 down to E11, which will calculate the average mean there for the London region properties. Moving on to the mode, I haven't defined what we mean by mode yet. So the mode is the value that appears most often in a data set of data values. To calculate the mode formula is equals mode, open parenthesis, select the values, which is E4 dot dot to E11, and then press enter, and then we'll have the mode total. And we've simply calculated the same there for the London region mode. So we click on the cell that we want the mode to appear in, and then if you can see, then you can see that it's the correct formula in the top left hand corner. You can also cross-reference that then with the left lower corner here for the mode. Okay, so that's all written there. So that's the mode calculated. The Medan. Defining the Medan. This is the middle number in a sorted data set. So that data set could be descending, ascending list of numbers, and can be more descriptive of the data set than the average. Okay, perhaps more accurate to the average. It can tell you more descriptively. Okay, so and to do that, again, it's the same format. So you put the cursor and select the cell for the Medan, and then it's equals Medan, open parenthesis, C4 dot dot C11, close parenthesis, and then press enter and it will calculate away then. Okay, that formula will enable you to calculate the Medan, sorry. Standard deviation. Standard deviation is simply the spread of data. Okay, so this is a statistic that measures the arrangement or the dispersion of the data set relative to its mean. So if you put in a line of best fit, it's how far away or how close to the average the other values are in that data set. So the smaller the data set, the closer each of the values in that data set is to the average. And if you have a larger number, as you do with the London data set, this means that there is a greater range, there's more of a deviation than from the average. So it's all about the average, the standard deviation, how largely dispersed then. It measures the dispersion of that particular data set. Okay, so the larger the number, the more variation between the findings then, okay? And so when you put the cursor where you want to display the standard deviation number, that will give you in the FX box at the top left hand corner, you put in equals. For standard deviation, you simply put in capitals STDEV, full stop S for sample, then open parenthesis, C4 colon to C11 to select our data, and then close parenthesis, press return, and it will give you the standard deviation calculation in front of you. When you type in the code, the formula for standard deviation, you will find more than one option for standard deviation. So you've got standard deviation.s, and there is also the option for standard deviation.p. 9 times out of 10, with your data sets, you will be looking for standard deviation.s, which looks at a representation of a sample or a data set. So it is a sample. If you use the standard deviation.p when you have very large numbers where you want to calculate the standard deviation, and generally that would be it's a larger population, and it is more purely representative of a whole population. So realistically, you would have a sample of the rental prices and the costs of living in London, in a one-bedroom flat in London, or a one-bedroomed flat or home then in Cardiff. Okay, so we're looking at a sample. So it's equals STDEV.S, open parenthesis, C4 ... C11, close parenthesis, and that is calculating the standard deviation for Cardiff, and you repeat the same then for the London regions. In terms of the range, so this is you're basically looking at the most that you're likely to pay in Cardiff, or the most that you're likely to pay per calendar month in London, minus the least you are likely to pay per calendar month in Cardiff, and the least you are likely to pay per month in London. And that is your range. So to calculate your range, again, you pop your cursor in the cell where you want to display your range value for Cardiff, and you simply type equals C17 for that is the cell reference, minus C18 for the cell reference for the minimum. Okay, and that will give you the range for Cardiff. If you want to calculate from your Cardiff data set the most that you are likely to pay in Cardiff, you would put the cursor again in the cell that you want to show the maximum value, or the maximum amount per calendar month rather, and the code then, or the formula in this case, is equal max, an abbreviation for maximum, then it's open parenthesis C4 ... to C11, close parenthesis, and then it works out, it'll bring to the forefront the most that you'll pay per calendar month then for rent, council tax and utility bills, okay? And then for the minimum is the least that you'd expect to pay in Cardiff. Again, pop the cursor where you need it in the cell, and then you write either in the cell, in that cell actually, you can write equals min for minimum, and then open parenthesis C4 dot dot C11 close parenthesis, and then it gives you the minimum range, and you can just repeat that again then for London. So there it is. Okay, so that's how I've set that out. I've tried to use colour there to make it as clear as I can as well. So let me just recap on the definitions of our terms. So the mean formula is the average. So it simply is the sum of the collection of numbers divided by the count of numbers in the collection. Okay. The mode is the value that appears the most often in a data set of data values. And then the medan is the middle number in a sorted data set, ascending or descending order, a list of numbers, and can be more descriptive of the data set than the average. So you're looking for the middle numbers. If you have two middle numbers, you simply add those numbers, divide them by 2, and that will give you the medan, the middle number then. But of course, the values have to be presented in logical order. A standard deviation is a statistic that measures the dispersion of the data set relative to its mean and is calculated using the square root of the variance. So the standard deviation looks at the spread of the data around the average. So the line of best fit will accurately be across the average, and then the deviation then, or the spread of the data, will be relative to the number. So if the lower the number, the closer each of the data sets are to the average. So the more representative and descriptive of the data average. But if then as in the London region here, if the average and the standard deviation, the number is higher, that suggests that there is a greater spread of data either side of the average.